Wayne asked me to go over today was a warm-up, so we're going to go over a sort of a generic warm-up that you guys can use before you play pickleball. I'll give you a little bit of background of myself very briefly. I've been a physiotherapist for 12 plus years. I did graduate from the U of A, and I traveled abroad to Perth, Australia to do my clinical masters in manual therapy. Worked with pro sport, if you consider Australian rules football pro sport. Lots of shoulder injuries there. This is probably more of a sport than that though. But I've been back for a couple years working in Sherwood Park just locally. And actually it's only in the last 3-4 years that I see a plethora of pickleball injuries actually. This is like the fastest growing injury I treat now. And it's funny because it's always like spring hits. And everyone's come back from Arizona or Phoenix or someplace. They've worn out their shoulders or arms, but they got to get back to play pickleball as soon as the weather is nice again, right? So one of the things we try to do in physiotherapy is, you know, if we can prevent an injury from happening, I think that goes further than trying to treat an injury. It's being about proactivity rather than reactivity. It's not the greatest business plan, but it is a good altruistic way to approach sport. So, Wayne asked me to briefly discuss like what the most common injuries I see related to pickleball. I guess one question I'd have is anyone actually injured here already? We got 2, 3, okay. The most common injuries I see are overuse injuries. Okay, it's we're doing too much too soon, or just too much that we can't necessarily handle yet. And probably the most common pickleball injury I see in your guys' population is shoulder injuries. So rotator cuff strains, little AC sprains and strains, sort of stemming from overuse and a little bit of arthritis potentially. That trickles down into the neck sometimes being an issue, okay? And then secondary to that, we do see some hip and back stuff, and occasionally an ankle from the sport you guys play because it's a court-based sport, right? So how do we prevent injuries from happening before they occur? Well, there's a couple ways of looking at this, okay? One of them, all right, I guess is proper warm-up, all right? Although the evidence out on exactly what the right warm-up is, whether it's static stretching versus an active warm-up, is a little bit lukewarm. We're gonna go over an active warm-up today because it's my belief that getting you moving and sort of mimicking some of the movements that you're gonna use prevents injury more so than just a long period of stretching. Environmental factors, okay, can be an issue, and Wayne was actually just discussing this with me on the way down from the car. Using the proper equipment, right? Sometimes we don't think about the equipment being an issue, right? But as he pointed out, in shoulder injuries particularly, if we're using a paddle that's too heavy, that can wear out a shoulder quicker. If we're using a paddle that's too light and you're hitting it too hard, that can wear out a shoulder too quick, okay? Shoes, right? So are we in the right shoe footwear? We're playing a court-based sport. So a runner, while supportive, is made for going straight, right? A court shoe gives us a little bit more lateral support, right? Or perhaps we need arch supports or orthotics if we've had them in our shoes before, but then we choose not to wear them playing the sport. Those types of things, those little small things over a long run can make a big difference into preventing injury. So thinking about the right equipment. When it comes to sort of paddles, I guess the guy to ask might be Wayne or anybody, an instructor, and seeing what might be the right paddle for you for how you play the game right now, right? And that might change, okay? As you get better at the game or change styles, you might find that you need to change equipment, right? And that's quite common. Other factors, okay, when we talk about overuse, all right, has anybody played baseball here? Okay, everyone's familiar with baseball though, okay, little league pitchers and major league pitchers have pitch counts, right, because they throw repetitively. Well, what's pickleball? It's a repetitive action overhead or underhead. You know, we don't need to put ourselves on, say, a hit count, but it does make sense that you could have the right technique, you could be pretty fit, but everyone's going to hit a wall at some point in time where their injury and risk goes up exponentially, right? And part of that's just using common sense, which in my opinion is not that common from my experience, okay, myself included. It's knowing when to say, you know what, I need a day off, okay, or you know what, I've played a few games, my arm's tired, I need to take a break, I'm feeling some pain, I'm not going to push through this. And I don't want you guys being like, you know, delicate little pieces of glass, say, I got to stop every time I got a little niggle, right? That's not what it's about. But it is knowing your limit and staying within it, right? I think that's from somewhere else. maybe drinking, I'm not sure. But regardless, you live to play another game, right? So if you're hitting that limit on a Monday and you need to take Tuesday off, honestly, the longevity of the season, you pays dividends, right? Monitoring where you're at on a given day or a given week. The biggest factor I see is when we first start playing pickleball, okay? So if we haven't played a sport before and we're into it and we really like it, sometimes we want to do more and more and more of it, right? Well, if we haven't done a sport or physical activity in general in a long period of time, and then all of a sudden we do a whole bunch of it, is it that shocking that sometimes we get an injury? No. And in the long run, okay, what we want to avoid is if you have that injury after you get into the sport, then all of a sudden you're out of the sport, and that's what nobody wants to have, right? You don't want to have to take breaks. So doing a little bit less is often much better than pushing through in the long run. And even when we see injuries, so I'll see someone like Wayne or perhaps Mario, I never really want you to stop playing altogether, but we want to modify, okay? So maybe right now, if you're coming off an injury, maybe we will have to take a week or two off, okay? Or perhaps we can play just one day a week rather than 7 or 6 or whatever sort of your issue is, to keep you involved in the sport, but not stepping back further and further and further to where you have to stop the sport. Does that make sense? Okay. So factors like that we don't really consider on a day-to-day basis. And there's other things that can factor into that, okay? If you're sick, you're going to be at higher risk of injury, okay? So if you've fighting the flu one week, you know, getting back, you want to, you know, dip into the sort of, it's like getting into a hot tub, right? You want to dip your toe in first and sort of ease yourself into it. You don't want to just jump in, right? Okay. If you haven't been sleeping well, okay, if the grandkids or the kids have been stressing you out, right? Those factors can actually lead to injury. In sport, high-level sport, we actually track these factors on a daily basis, and we decide what a professional athlete will do on a given day based on all these outside factors. And we don't need to get that carried away, but it's worth noting and sort of putting a little bit of a governor on yourself on a day-to-day basis about what you want to do, right? Now, if it's a championship game and you got to beat this guy, then go for it, right? Okay? But we're talking about 1 week to week basis. Okay? Is there any questions about that? Not particularly, probably. But we're going to go over a really easy warm-up, and we're going to all do it together, if everybody will indulge me, all right? And then at the end of that, you can ask me some questions if you like. If not, everybody will be ready to go play some pickleball. Is that all right? Okay, on stretching, there's a couple stretches we're going to do, but the majority of what I want to focus on is a little bit of an active warm-up, all right? And part of that, how many people go for a walk or do a little bit of a circuit before they play? About half of us, maybe. It's all the women. See, women are smart. Okay? That's guys, just like, let's go play, right? Okay? Get your blood going, right? So doing a few laps around the court, okay, is a great way to warm up, okay, doing that and then doing like a light, easy rally, which is probably something more of us probably do, you know, ease it into it. We're not going to smash as hard as we can right off the bat, okay? To start off with, we're not going to go for a walk. The exercise that I like to do, football background, we do high knees, okay? So we're going to start with high knees, and we can do this marching on the spot. So everyone indulge me, okay? We're going to start doing high knees up and back, okay? As high as you can go. If you do have hip problems, okay, you don't have to get as high as you possibly can get, right? But if it feels okay, you want to try to get to 90. And a good way to do that is put your hands out, try to tag them, okay? And do this for about 30 seconds or so, all right? Again, if you're getting hip pain with this, especially in the front, don't do it, okay? Just march, right? Okay? Helps work on balance as well. Everyone feel good with that? Okay? So the second exercise we're going to do, okay, we do butt kicks, okay? And you can do these moving if you want, but in this case, we're marching on a spot. Now we're trying to kick our bum with our heels. So this is an active quad stretch. Some people do this one, right? Okay, this is an active one. And if you have knee pain, don't try to push through it. Okay, do what's comfortable, right? If balance is an issue for you for either one of these, hang on to the edge of the court or a partner. Make it fun, right? Okay. Whatever works for you, okay? We're going to do a few seconds of that. Excellent. Easy peasy. Okay. Ankle injuries are very common, so the next stretch focuses on the most common muscle that I see injured in pickleball, and that's your calf. Okay. This muscle here. We get a lot of Achilles tendonitis from tight calves, or sometimes that makes us more prone to possibly an ankle injury, rolling an ankle. So we're going to do a calf stretch. Okay. So probably for the easiest thing to do, I'll get Wayne to come on up here. Okay. This is where we get to get interactive and get a friend. Use a friend for balance. Okay. We're going to put one leg back. You can do the same thing, right? Okay? You can hold on to each other just for a little bit of balance. What we're going to do is lean forwards onto our front leg, pushing our right heel, in this case, mine, back into the ground until we feel a pull right through this muscle here. Okay? We're going to hold that for about 10 seconds. Nobody wants to touch each other? Okay. You can do it on your own. This is a community sport. We're supposed to all get along, right? Okay? 10 seconds, then you can switch and go the other direction. If you feel comfortable, you don't need a partner for doing this, okay? One of the most common things I see is kind of like this fellow here. Okay? If you can, try to get this foot much forward. Okay? You may not be able to go as far. Yeah. You'll better pull through there. Okay. A lot of 3 or 4 each side, holding about 10 seconds, okay? If you're a really bad counter, where you count like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, hold for a lengthy pause, 2 or 3 breaths, okay? Our necks, we want to keep our necks nice and loose, okay? So we're going to just do neck rolls. Okay? The thing I want you to be very careful about with doing your neck roll though, okay? Yeah, you just did it, so slow down for a second, okay? We don't want to look up too high, okay? That's quite susceptible to straining the neck and loading the joints, especially if maybe we have a touch of arthritis, okay? So we don't need to go way up. We kind of want to go down and then back to neutral. And then down, and you can start to flirt maybe with a little bit of a tilt up, but honestly, it's not something we're striving for. We don't really want to do that. It doesn't look very comfortable in me, so I'm not going to try it, okay? It's nice and easy neck rolls. And we can turn and go the other direction, okay? So we're getting kind of an active stretch both directions without putting too much strain on any one muscle. Everyone feel good about that one? Excellent, okay? Which leads us to our next one, our shoulders, okay? Shoulder rolls. Probably everyone does this one, okay? Now you can do them out here nice and slow, just trying to loosen up the shoulders. Thinking about pinching your shoulder blades back, okay? Squeezing an orange between them, and then coming back forward. So squeeze that orange. What that does is that warms up a group of muscles in your shoulder blade. That's sort of the anchor of your shoulder, okay? And if we have a good anchor on our shoulder, our arm works better. It's kind of like a crane. If the crane's not stuck to the ground, it's not very good at lifting anything. Okay, so our shoulder blade is our anchor for our arm, all right? If you're more adventurous, you can get out and do a little bit more of the arm circles, okay? But it's not necessary. And if this hurts, don't do it, okay? This can load your AC joint, which is the boniest joint right here. And some of us have a little bit of aches and pains in that joint. We don't need to make it worse, okay? So when you're warming up, it should feel kind of good. And after you do it, you should feel better than when you started, not worse. If you're feeling it worse, you're either doing it wrong or I'm wrong. So don't do it dogmatically just because I told you to, okay? You can go back in both directions. Pretty easy, okay? This leads me to the one stretch that I do include, okay, for shoulders, because it is the most common injury I see. We want to stretch the back of our shoulders. That often gets tight in lots of people. That's right, okay? When it gets tight in people, it leads to all sorts of things called impingement, okay? And impingement is essentially pain in the front of the shoulder that can prevent us from wanting to play pickleball, okay? So we're going to grab onto our arm, okay? We're going to stay low. We don't want to be high choking ourselves. We want to be a little bit lower, and we want to pull across without the shoulders hiking up, okay? You can modify it so your arm's bent. You can keep your arm straight like this fellow's doing. But try to drop your arm a little bit, sir. Shoulder. There you go, okay? Because if we're up here, we actually are more prone to impingement. Okay, when we're down here, we get a better stretch into the back of the shoulder, maybe a little bit into the triceps, okay? So not choking ourselves, not too high, nice little pull. Again, holding for a count of 10 seconds, repeating 2 or 3 each direction, okay? We always try to aim for symmetry, but symmetry is not really that common, okay? So it doesn't matter if one side's a little harder than the other, okay? Don't push into pain, right? I've never seen anyone who pushing through pain gets better. That whole pain, no pain, no gain, actually, I don't really quite believe in, right? Unless I'm doing something to you actively, then I'm allowed to do it, right? You're giving me permission, okay? All right? So posterior shoulder stretching, all right? Now another exercise that's really, really important, that actually is a big problem for your population, is we tend to get a little tight with our rotation, okay? Rotation is really, really important in a racket sport, because if all we're doing is this, okay, we're going to wear out our elbow, we're going to wear out our shoulder, all right? In a good racket sport, we actually sort of rotate and we use our core and weight transfer, okay? And that's maybe a little bit of a technique issue that you take if you're doing lessons or what have you, okay? But we want to sort of loosen up our thoracic spine, which often gets pretty tight as we get a little bit older. So just rotating back and forth comfortably, okay? So we're working on that whole rotational movement. We've gone from the ankle all the way up through the legs. Now we're working on the thoracic spine. Easy, right? Okay, you can do helicopters. okay? And then last but not least, okay, and this is not a stretch, but this is a fantastic warm-up for your shoulder, okay? It's also a first step in preventing shoulder rotator cuff injuries. It's a little tricky though. You're gonna take one arm and you're gonna put it by your side, okay? I'll just demonstrate this in a second. What we're gonna try and do is think about a movement where we're rotating our arm out by our side, okay? If anybody's had a shoulder injury and gone to the physio, they've probably taught you this exercise with a rubber band, okay? But what we're gonna do is we're gonna take our other hand, okay? And we're gonna prevent that from happening. So we're gonna have a little battle with ourselves where we push out against ourselves, rotating, not lifting, but rotating, okay? And we're just gonna have a little bit of a fight. We're gonna hold for about a count of 1, 2, 3, and relax, okay? If you're doing this, you're working way too hard, okay? If you're like, I don't even know what I'm doing, you're probably not working hard enough, okay? So happy medium in between the two. If it hurts, be careful. Don't push harder through pain, okay? The best way to get blood to a muscle, to warm a muscle up, what do you think the answer is? Use it, right? Resistance, okay? This uses our rotator cuff, and theoretically it uses one muscle in our rotator cuff, but realistically it uses all four. Our rotator cuff's 4 muscles, right? So it brings blood to the area, it gets you ready, okay? Start using that shoulder properly, okay? And hopefully preventing an injury or a pull or strain early in the first sort of match you get into, okay? Then we warm up with a light rally, okay? The most common time of an injury, when do you think most people get hurt playing any sport? At the end? That's right, but there's also another answer. At the beginning, okay? It's very rarely in the middle, all right? So at the beginning, if you're not warmed up, your chance of injury is much higher, okay? Why do we get hurt at the end? Because you're tired, okay? So knowing when to quit before you're gonna get hurt is probably more important and more effective in preventing injury than anything I just told you, okay? And it's simple, it's just being, it's a hard thing to do, right? Willpower, saying, I've had enough today, I'm tired, I'm dehydrated. That last match, unless it's a championship match, because it's a championship match, you can't quit, okay? But if it's just that extra exhibition match or what have you, you know, maybe we stop and say, you know what, I'm just gonna play to 3 points this round, okay? I'm tired. You know, it's just like that old adage. Does anybody here skiers? Right? You pass on the last run, right? You don't do the last run of the day. And generally you get to go skiing the next day. So when you do the last run, that all of a sudden you're in the, you know, not the right place, you're in the hospital. Okay? And that's our warm-up. Okay? I have pictures of it. Okay? There's gonna be, you know, the other one that's really good for hip range of motion is just stationary cycling, like on a recumbent bike. Yeah. Okay, as long as it's not painful here, and your knees aren't taking too taxing on you. Okay? That's the way I sort of treat back pain. Yeah. In the back here.
Can you suggest something for the knees?
Hip stretching. No, okay, so you want to find out why you're having knee pain, okay?
Arthritis.
Okay, so strength is your solution there, okay? So you want to work on some exercises that you can either do at home or in the gym to strengthen your thigh muscles and to strengthen your bum muscles, okay? The biggest thing that I see, the main thing I treat other than shoulders, and I work with a shoulder surgeon, so I'm sort of biased to shoulders, but the main thing I see is we get weak in our bums, okay? Especially as we get older, right? We're in a society now where we sit a lot, right? So this muscle wastes pretty quickly, and when this muscle's not strong, guess what has to work harder? Everything else, but your knee and your back, okay? Now proper footwear can help with knees as well, to a certain extent, making sure you got a good cushioning shoe, and or, you know, perhaps an insole. Is anyone here an orthotist? Okay, good. I'm not a huge proponent of like custom orthotics, okay, as a first go. In some circumstances you may need that. If you have really bad bunion or you've had a bunionectomy, certainly. But you can get like a generic insole for like $30. They're called Super Feet at the running room. They're really great for footwear for sports as you're transitioning into a new sport, okay? I get all my clients to try that first because I figure $30 is better than $400 as an original investment to see if it helps. Okay? Now, don't get me wrong. There's a time and place for custom orthotics.
Plantar fasciitis, better weight, second.
Right. Okay.
I got a custom orthotic.
And so there's always the outlier. So I should have asked, has anybody had success with custom orthotics as well?
Well, conversely, the custom orthotics gave me plantar fasciitis. I never had it before, so there.
there's a rhyme and reason for everything, okay? But as I say, sometimes just if you don't have a major problem, okay, such as plantar fasciitis, sort of chronic or things like that, you can try a few things, or go see one of your local professionals in physiotherapy or chiropractic medicine or whatever you've had success with in the past, and maybe they can guide you a little bit more into sort of the rhyme and reason for what you need. So that was an indirect way of answering your question. Okay. Honestly, in today's day and age, this isn't the popular answer, but I'm going to give you the truth here today, okay, in my opinion. Okay, so take that for what it's worth. There's only really two ways to fix things in our musculoskeletal system. It's activity modification and a little bit of hard work. There's a lot of quick answers out there. I give people a few as well. I stick needles in people and stuff like that. It helps, don't get me wrong, okay? But the key to longevity in a sport and life, to be quite honest, is physical activity in the right amount. And it's not popular anymore, but it's true, right? And I think if everyone takes a step back, it kind of makes sense. Right? So if you have an overuse injury and you keep doing the same thing wrong over and over again, well, that's the definition of insanity, isn't it? Okay, it's not going to get better. If you're not fit enough to do a sport, okay, or you don't have the strength to do it, the only way you're going to get the strength to do it is by getting stronger, right? And part of that's some adjunct exercise, but part of it too is doing that sport, but at the level you can do it until you get the endurance to do it more. So, and there's some other sort of fixes too, okay? Certainly with arthritis and things like that, one thing I see a lot of shoulders, as I say. In certain circumstances, things like corticosteroid injections really improve people's sort of sport and things like that, but it's not something I would suggest going for without trying conservative measures first, because once you go down that road, you're opening another sort of paradigm of it could get worse. And kind of
So what's the best for the neck injury? Let's say you get arthritis.
What's the
best exercise? Like exercise is the best?
Well, it depends, okay? Neck injuries and spine injuries, like when you have an injury, okay?
Yeah, I'm sorry,
yeah,
arthritis.
Yeah, I know where you're coming from because your neck hurts,
yeah.
okay? First we need pain control, okay? And there's a variety of ways. So if you come see someone like me, the first thing I'm going to try and do, rather than just give you an exercise and say, well, you're not strong enough, so you need to get stronger to do this exercise that hurts, we need to get pain control. So in a neck, it might be doing some decompression treatment where we do some traction, okay? It might give you some exercise at home that mimic that, all right? And then it might be correcting why you're loading that arthritis in the first place, okay? Now don't get me wrong, arthritis is a pain generator, all right? But for most people who have arthritic type pain that's new, it's not like you didn't have arthritis 6 weeks ago, right? So why is it hurting now? Okay, well, it's inflamed, right? So if we can get that inflammation under control and then prevent you from overwhelming it again, you generally have a lot of success, okay? Depending on where you're at in the spectrum of arthritis, right? Certainly the end spectrum, we might need a knee replacement, right? It's kind of past the point where we can just rest it and get you back to the activity you want. So there's a wide range of things, but generally we try to get pain under control, and then we try to strengthen you and integrate you back into the activity you want to do, whether it be pickleball or just life in general. Okay?
Good.
Any other questions?
Besides squats.
Okay, my favorite bum muscle exercise is called a bridge. Okay, do you know what a bridge is?
Low level or high level?
Medium, right? So a bridge is a muscle for your bum, okay, where you lie on your back and you essentially lift your hips up. Like that. And that's a good bum exercise, unless you do it in yoke, because they teach it differently, and then it's not a good exercise for your bum. But so there's, unfortunately, in medicine, okay, there's a yes and no to every question. That's a really good exercise as long as it doesn't hurt your back, okay, right? Sometimes it's little subtle techniques that you need to look at to get the right benefit from an exercise. And honestly, I'm not a big self-promoter. I'm not here today for you to come see me particularly. But honestly, going and seeing a professional one time to get a program, if you have some specific questions, it's probably well worth it, right? Now, if they try to sell you that you need to come 3 times a week for the next like 6 months, all right, maybe that certainly won't make it worse. Well, it might, but you know, if you come in and you say, listen, I'm doing well, but I just want some help with some guidance, then getting that help isn't a bad thing, right? You've got somebody who's going to walk you through it. So something to think about, but that would be a good exercise. You had a question, sir?
Power, when you use power
Yeah.
to slam it, what exercise you got? Just this little one like that?
Well, you want to take that to the next level, okay? Depends how much power you want. How much you want all the power?
When you smash it, you're using power. Then definitely.
I know, okay? So you know where people actually get hurt with power is the deceleration. You got power, but you can't slow it down. You hurt your shoulder, okay? So you want to go to the next level where you're working on some rubber band exercises, okay? Eventually we start to do resistance or strength training up here. So in sports performance, we actually try to strengthen that movement pattern, okay? So there's a spectrum of exercises you want to do. Power comes from your core. If your power's coming from your arm, you will come see me, okay? All right? Unfortunately, as we get a little bit older, okay, we lose a little bit of balance. We lose a little bit of leg strength. So we don't start weight transferring as much anymore. We stop moving our feet, okay? If you don't move your feet, right, you're not going to use your core. If you don't use your core, you're not going to get rotation. You're going to start using your arm more. So if you want really good power, it's all about a whole body movement, right? You golf?
Not anymore.
Not anymore? Okay. Any rotational sport's all about weight transfer sequence. It comes from the hips, transfers to the core, goes to the arm, and it should happen in a very sequence, right? And when anytime that sequence is thrown off, that's where we see inefficiency or loss of power and injury, typically. Now, to answer your question succinctly, okay, rotator cuff strength. But if you want to go to that next level, it's looking at why you're losing power in the first place, okay, which could be simple as you're not rotating.
James, on that baseball throw, maybe you can talk about this versus this, because a lot of players go after that high ball, but they should be looking more at an angulation and the body position.
Well, certainly the higher your arm is at point of contact, the more loading you put through your shoulder, and particularly what we call your AC joint here, which is where we see a lot of problems, and that's a tough one to treat, other than more aggressive, non-necessarily conservative measures. So the safest thing to do, I mean, if you're playing pickleball down here, okay, and you're using good technique, okay, that's fairly easy on the shoulder. So then every degree you go up, you're starting to exaggerate that a little bit more. Does that answer your question? Right? So again, if you're always reaching, okay, and your shoulder's getting sore, what's the solution? Strengthen your shoulder? No, it's move your feet, okay? All right? Now, that's not always an option for everyone, okay?
Time is a factor. Sometimes you
Yeah.
don't.
Oh, totally, okay? Although, you know, if you played linebacker for the Edmonton Eskimos and you said, well, if I didn't have time to move my feet, your coach would cut you, right? Okay? And I'm not being flippant, well, I am there, okay? But, as I said, it doesn't always happen, right? Now, if you reach 2 times out of 50, are you going to get injured? Probably not. If you reach 48 times out of 50, are you going to get injured? Probably. So it's percentages, right? So it's about technique playing the sport, right? If you do an overhead smash, it's okay, right? If that's your only option, because you're not getting back far enough to get that angle, it's a higher chance of injury. And then the worst part about that sort of answer, though, is, but sometimes it doesn't, okay? Some of you guys are genetic freaks, you'll never get injured, okay? So you might just be, and some of you, unfortunately, are the opposite end of the spectrum, and you're always injured. Wayne, okay?